US President Donald Trump is keeping quiet on whether he'll strike Iran again. The uncertainty has forced our government and others to evacuate the families of some diplomats from the region. Here's Defence Minister Richard Marles.
The situation in the Middle East is uncertain. As we have made clear, we are taking precautionary measures in respect of the dependence of those diplomats who are serving, particularly in Israel and Lebanon.
Let's go to Adelaide and catch up with Australia's longest-serving Foreign Minister, the former Foreign Minister Alexander Downer. Thanks for joining us, Alexander. I know we've spoken about the build-up against Iran for a long while, but when countries like Australia start moving diplomatic families out of the region, surely it tells us that we've been given some sort of indication that there could be some sort of action soon.
Well, they're taking into account what sort of retaliation there could be from the Iranians. So the Iranians could fire missiles at Israel, or they could fire missiles into Lebanon. So, I mean, they're hypercautious DFAT, there's no doubt about that. And I don't want to see the diplomats themselves being evacuated. I understand the families would like to leave. If they want to leave, that should be facilitated. But we don't know yet whether there's going to be an American strike on military targets in Iran, but that could happen, and how the Iranians could retaliate. They have limited capability to retaliate.
Now, I want to ask you about a major anniversary that comes around this Monday. It's 30 years since this moment in history.
And I want to say that the government that I will lead will be a government not only for the people who voted for us, but also for the people who voted against us.
Now, presumably on that night, March the 2nd, 1996, Alexander, you would have been in the Adelaide Hills at your own election night party. Tell us about the thrill of that victory and whether you and John Howard and Peter Costello and others had any sense that this would lead to a long and stable era of government.
Well, we had no idea, of course, how long we would survive, but it was a very exciting night. We had lost in 1993 the so-called unlosable election when John Hewson was our leader, and we'd lost a few elections before that, so to come back and win an election with actually a mighty majority, the third biggest majority in Australian Federation history, it was really exciting. There's no doubt about that. And the thing I would say is we knew that night exactly what we wanted to do. And when we got into government, we got on and we did it.
Yeah, that's a crucial point. You had a plan and you worked hard implementing it. I just want to plug the documentary that we're running here. There's some events around the place, some wonderful events planned to commemorate and celebrate this anniversary. But here at Sky News, we're running the documentary that's hosted by Chris Uhlmann. It's called John Howard, A Life in Politics, and it's going to air on Wednesday, the 11th of March at 7:30 p.m. While we're on elections, though, Alexander, I've got to get your thoughts on the South Australian election. Obviously, you're a South Australian politician. You haven't been in state politics, but you've seen the ebbs and flows there over the years. The Liberals in South Australia are in all sorts of strife. They've been in a mess for a long while. You're just expecting a disaster for them come March the 21st, aren't you?
No, I think they'll do better than you imagine at this stage. And I, by the way, think One Nation will do less well than the polls show at the moment. It's clear that Labor are going to win the election. But the Liberal leader, Ashton Hearn, has done a superb job. And I wouldn't, I mince my words otherwise. If she wasn't very good, I wouldn't criticise her, but I would be cautious in what I said. But actually, she's been extremely good, and in these circumstances, she's also been very brave. So I think, they will do they will do better than expected. And the other thing about One Nation is, as you just heard from Corey Bernardi, they say they will do things, but they have no idea how they would cost them, how they would pay for anything. They're really just a protest party. They're not a party of government, and they're not serious in terms of what they could achieve in government, because they know they're not going to be in government.
You know Corey Bernardi pretty well. Would he be handy in the upper house of the state parliament?
Well, as a person, he's a very nice guy. There's no doubt about that, even though we have our political disagreements. You can like people and disagree with their politics.
Absolutely.
By the way.
You
That's
sure
permissible,
can.
and by the way, that's to be encouraged.
Sure is. There's not enough of it around, Alexander. Thanks so much for joining us. Alexander Downer there, former Foreign Minister, telling us that One Nation won't be quite as strong in the South Australian election as the polling suggests. I think that's the interesting thing about the election. Can that polling success for One Nation turn into votes on the day? And Coalition and One Nation people right around the country will be waiting for that and watching that very, very closely.